shoot. Fires from the top of the key and takes it home. The Liberty take a 2-point lead.
Welcome to Liberty FM, the podcast dedicated to all things New York Liberty. I'm Felicia, and I'm joined by my co-host and husband, Francois. This is episode 8, recapping the 2 home games and the New York Liberty played against the Phoenix Mercury and the Seattle Storm. 2 teams which are at the bottom of the league, but with a new coach and Brittany Griner and Taurasi back from injury for the Mercury, and the Storm offering a more coherent style of basketball. We knew that those games were not going to be as easy as the standings might suggest. So first, let's review the game against the Mercury this past Wednesday, which the Liberty won 99-95. Francois, where should we start?
Well, let's start with the first quarter. The first quarter was a really good start for the New York Liberty. We know that, sometimes they kind of struggle to start games and then get stronger in the second half. But this time around, I felt like they had a really good start. The Liberty put a lot of defensive pressure on the perimeter, and also when Griner got the ball, which resulted in the Phoenix Mercury scoring only 13 points in the first quarter. What did you make of that first quarter, Felicia?
Yeah, they started strong, especially you felt good when you saw Laney steal the inbounds pass from Taurasi in the first minute and a half of the game. You definitely felt like the Liberty started aggressive and they set the tone and pace of this game.
Yeah, so I felt like we were up for a great night. Like they set the tone, and I felt like they started really strongly, and I felt like we were gonna maybe have like a comfortable game, even though the Mercury, got their stars back. I felt it was going to be a good night. But the second quarter didn't start as well as we expected. I think by now we know that the Liberty have been pretty inconsistent in their last few games. They've struggled to play a consistent 40 minutes. And the second quarter was no exception. We started with a turnover from Breanna Stewart that led to a Shea Patty layup. And then later free from Moriah Jefferson. A turnover from Sabrina that led to Michaela Onyenwere fast break, and all of a sudden it was a 6-point game. The Liberty didn't score any field goal for about 7 minutes. So I think that's the thing that frustrates us with the Liberty. Like, they have those moments of brilliance where they dominate and you feel like they're gonna blow a team by 30 points, and then all of a sudden they give a bone to the other team for them to come back, right?
Yeah, I think the thing too to remember is that you still have really great players. Taurasi and Griner, you give them credit too. I mean, for the second quarter though, this was all about Michaela Onyenwere. I think she led the team in the second quarter. They played with grit. They came back. They made whatever adjustments was necessary for the second quarter. And I think the Liberty did throw them a bone with some turnovers and defensive miscues. I think sometimes for the Liberty, what you see is that they may get a lead and it's almost like they relax. They don't, again, they're not keeping their foot on the pedal. They're not keeping their foot on the gas and really pushing this game. And, we've heard the coach talk about this many times. When they get a lead, really continue to play with poise and play with urgency, like don't let up. And I think sometimes, but that's sort of part of the game, there's ebbs and flows to this game, and that's exactly for the Liberty what you see sometimes. They start off strong, then they sort of pull back, they come back, it kind of goes back and forth. So yeah, it can seem frustrating at times, but again, this is a league where you have top teams. There's only 12 teams in this league, and Taurasi is considered the GOAT, or one of the GOATs in this league. So you gotta give some credit to Phoenix as well. They're not, I know what the standings might suggest, but Griner just getting back, Taurasi still who she is. She's gonna put up shots. You can't leave her on her own at all.
Yeah, so let's go back to Diana Taurasi for a second. I know in the previous podcast I said initially the GOAT, and then I said one of the GOATs. I mean, personally, let's keep it real. My GOAT is Maya Moore. She's my favorite player of all time. but we cannot deny the talent of Diana Taurasi. She's the leading scorer in the history of the WNBA, and obviously she's not at a prime. She's more towards the end of her career, and she hasn't necessarily been the most efficient player in the last few seasons. But she's a bucket, and when she start waking up, it's getting really really challenging to stop her. And in that second quarter, she started to warm up, and it was really hard for the Liberty to stop Taurasi.
Yeah, once she gets in her bag, it's hard. It's really hard to stop her. You definitely, for the Liberty, defense is crucial, and they definitely have some miscues. And so if you leave her open, if she, either her or Cunningham, those three balls will land eventually. And that score diminished really quickly. But again, for the second quarter, I will still say it was all Michaela and Brittany coming through too. But Michaela definitely stepped up, which also fueled the team to step up and come back into this game against the Liberty.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I think it was Jackie Powell that asked after the game. She asked Benajalini about what she made of Michaela's performance against New York, and I think she was really happy for her to be on a team where she could flourish and have more of an opportunity. I mean, obviously she had her opportunity, especially the first year, a rookie season with the Liberty, where she was rookie of the year, and there was a lot of young players on the team, and she really took opportunity of a chance that she was given. But I feel like last year was a little bit more challenging with the change of coach with Sandy Brandello. I think that she struggled to kind of like fit in her system, and obviously with the decision that the Liberty took to chase after superstars. Obviously, players like Michaela Onyenwere were gonna be sort of like the victim of that trade system. So I was, obviously, like Vanessa said as well, like, she would have rather for Michaela to not score and not do well against them. But it was great to see her, and she definitely took advantage of opportunity that she was given in the game, attacking the basket, going over defenders, and they could not really stop her. So it was definitely great to see Michaela perform the way she did. And so at halftime, we still had the lead, 53-46, but it was a much closer game that we anticipated based on what we saw in the first quarter. And once again, we have to thank Breanna Stewart, who had 19 points and 5 rebounds in the first half. And so third quarter, it felt like the Liberty kind of started strong again, just like in the first quarter. Really like nice ball movements, a couple of frees. Benaja setting the tone, of the team. She's kind of like not the vocal leader, but the leader in terms of her attitude and her grit, isn't she?
Yeah, she's definitely, I know a lot of people look at this as Stewie's team now, but Lainey, she is definitely showing you what she can do on the court still. She's still, I think she's still a vocal leader. She's definitely still a presence there, but she's showing you what she can bring to the court. And I just love that for her. I love her defensive presence and the offenses. When both are clicking, it's beautiful to watch. And so, yeah, they started out strong in the third quarter. You thought they were running away with it for a little bit. What did they get up to? Like almost 20 points.
Yeah, they got a 20-point lead with Sabrina score free, Stewie score free as well. And so at that very moment, like, middle of the third quarter, they had a 20-point lead. And so, we didn't feel as fans that we had to worry, and I felt like it was, like a decisive lead. But I guess that's the beauty of basketball. You can never assume that a game is over until you hear the last the last ring of the end of the game, and the turning point was that 6-point play by Diana Taurasi. Like,
that play.
Can you explain a little bit what happened?
That play was tough. It was tough to watch. I mean, it created a huge foul problem for Thornton. who was defending Taurasi in the middle of the third, coming towards the end of the third. And that was the first flagrant foul one for Kayla Thornton on Taurasi, which ended up leading to her making 3 free throws and gaining the possession, and a nice screen set for her to make another 3-point, which started this 6-point play. And you immediately felt that momentum shift.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know, any card games and you have like a bad set of cards. Well, that's basically like when you take a card and it's like, oh man, it kind of messes up like, what I'm trying to do here. Well, that's basically what the Liberty had, bad sets of cards. Because it's like, not only do you have a flagrant foul one, which gave free throws to Taurasi, but then right after she scored a free, and all of a sudden, like, they sort of came back to, like, trailing by 9 by the end of the quarter. But, all of a sudden you had a game. And then I think, like, that's the first time I've ever seen that in my life, whether it's the WNBA or the NBA. But towards the end of the third quarter, Kayla Thornton got another flagrant foul one, sort of like putting her leg, allegedly sort of like not giving land for Taurasi to land, and the ref sort of reviewed the play and gave this another flagrant foul one, which, 2 flagrant foul ones, you're out, and, Kayla Thornton couldn't believe it, and she had to, go back to the locker room.
Yeah, they were tough calls. When you look back at the replay,
I mean, the second one was, like, the first one I would say, like, looking back, I would say yes. The second one wasn't as obvious, though. Like, 'cause it's like, what are you supposed to do? Like, how are you supposed to defend? Like, do you have to just gently step aside so that Taurasi can have a free? No, you can't do that. Like, I mean, to be fair, Taurasi is obviously a smart player, and she really saw that call by, sort of exaggerating a little bit with how she landed. Like, I felt like she had enough space, to be honest.
Once Thornton, she got into a little bit of a chippy situation with Taurasi, because even after the first flagrant foul one, she got another foul. And it looked more like an offensive foul on Taurasi at first, and then it got chippy, and I think Taurasi used that to her advantage. And that second flagrant foul one call, that's a tough call, because her foot did slide out, but I don't think it slid out enough like in the first call.
Yeah.
And so I think and also on both calls, Taurasi never went down. And I know that's not necessarily, that the player has to fall or go down in order for that rule to be applied. However, I think at that point, Taurasi knew what she was doing. She's a smart player, so she knew how to get to Thornton a little bit, and she knew if she can just step back a little bit, Thornton would come into her space. And so, it's a tough call, though.
I mean, you can't blame her. She's going to take advantage of what the game allows her to do. It's the same with the NBA when you complain about players like Chris Paul that, get calls, but, they say that they don't do anything illegal. They just, do what the defense is giving them. And in this, particular example, Foreign, I mean, Brandello said after the game that she didn't make any excuse. She didn't criticize the referee. I mean, obviously, if you do that, you might get a fine, but she didn't make any excuse for her players. She said that we got to be smarter. We got to be smarter in the way we challenge the player when they shoot the ball, and she felt like, Kayla should have done a better job. But it's tough to be sent out like that. Like, you usually imagine, like, players, like, getting into a fight or, like, giving a really hard foul to another player, but not like 2 flagrant flagrant one like that where you felt like, she barely touched Taurasi and now you have one of the best defenders that goes out. So that was tough, and definitely gave a lifeline to Phoenix. And let's talk a little bit about the new coach, Nikki Blue, who replaced recently Vanessa Nygaard, who was dismissed as a coach after a tumultuous tenure with the Phoenix Mercury, because I felt like they're starting to have a little bit more identity, even though it's still early. But when you look at the fourth quarter, they definitely were able to, attack the Liberty on what they do best, which is like scoring on the inside. And Brittany Griner started to, reemerge in this game.
Yeah, once they started to feed the ball to Brittany Griner, unfortunately for Jonquil Jones, she didn't have much. She didn't have much for her, so it was tough. But I think Phoenix made the adjustments, and with this new coach, it's not easy. Coming in as the interim coach in basically the middle or almost middle of the season. So you're hoping to try to find kind of a new identity for this team. You don't want to change it up too much because you got to try to find a rhythm. And I think, once Taurasi and Griner came back from injury, I think they'll find their rhythm. They're definitely missing Diggins Smith, who's I guess she's still on maternity leave. So
and we the last time we heard from reports, it doesn't seem like she's in a rush to come back. I mean, it's understandable. Obviously, you want to enjoy your maternity leave, and obviously we know that there were some issues last year. I mean, we don't know everything, but the vibe kind of is weird, and when the players or the managers are asked about Skylar Diggins Smith, they keep, ditching the questions about saying that she's on maternity leave. So we don't know if she's going to come back. And in a way, it's good for us because that would have made it an even tougher game.
I mean, with Diggins Smith, she can ball. Yeah. So, and whatever the vibe was for them last year or this year, obviously Brittany wasn't there with them, and that was a hard hit on their team, and it would be for any team. So I think with Diggins Smith out, who is a bucket getter, and yeah, she would have the Liberty on skates at times last year. So, take your time. Take your time with maternity leave. But, they're missing some offensive presence there. And so, and for Griner too, just coming back this year, it's going to take a little bit of time. She still definitely has her game, but to get that strength momentum back, it'll take a little bit of time for her. And so I think once they get through this year, I truly believe Griner next season she'll be back to her old form. I don't think she's fully there yet, but she'll be back there. I have no doubts about that. But yeah, for this coach, it's gonna take some time to kind of set up what you want for this team, but they made the adjustments trying to come back in this game. And for Phoenix, they're still a great team despite what the standings may suggest. This isn't, again, as I said before, this league is made up of top people because there's only so many teams in this league. So you're going to take the best of the best, and so despite all that, I think they, I don't know how the rest of the season will go for them, but they are not just going to lay down and be run over by teams. They're going to push and try to win, and that's what they started to do in the fourth quarter on the Liberty.
Yeah. Now, don't worry. It hasn't all of a sudden become a Phoenix Mercury podcast, but we obviously had to, analyze what we saw and the difference between, what we saw earlier in the season. Yeah. But this is a Liberty, podcast, and what can we say? We are so grateful that we can have someone with the talent that Breanna Stewart has.
Thank God for Stewie.
So, I mean, we pretty much say like every week. The fans at the Barclays are chanting MVP pretty much every time she's at the free throw line. But, she really took over when we needed her the most. Mm-hmm. And she scored 16 of the last 18 New York Liberty points. And she was just incredible. And And what also is great is like the chemistry that she has with Courtney Vandersloot. Like it's almost like they can play eyes, with their eyes closed. And Sloot knows exactly how Stewie is gonna set a screen and how she's gonna after that pick and pop. It's just incredible. And so yeah, she literally took over, and I think at some point, the Phoenix Mercury missed a shot. The Liberty had the ball. Courtney Vandersloot kind of ran the clock, and then she sort of set a play where she passed the ball to Stewie and kind of set a screen for her. Stewie literally took advantage of the momentum she had. Took a lot of speed, went on the inside, took a jump shot over 3 defenders, scoring an incredible basket that gave a 3-point lead for the New York Liberty, which was a decisive lead. After that, the Liberty had a very strong defense on the last Phoenix play, and that was pretty much what gave the win to the Liberty. But aren't you a little bit worried though, Felicia? How dependent the Liberty tend to be on offense with Stewie. Sandy Brandello said at the end of the game we have Stewie, which is great. Any teams that want to win a title need a superstar. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it kind of worries me how dependent we are. Sometimes it's just a lack of ball movement. Everybody just stands in the corner and just wait for Stewie to create a miracle. But she played 38 minutes out of the 40 minutes in that game, and I don't know. I just felt like we're sort of getting too comfortable in doing that, and that could be dangerous, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean this is a gritty game. So, and she's your number one player on that team. So, they're going to want to play as much. They'll play the whole game if they have to. They want to get the win no matter what it takes. And yeah, we may not necessarily like Stewie playing 38 minutes. You want to see more ball movement. You want to see other players getting more involved offensively, but at that point, as we entered the fourth quarter, that again, the momentum shift for Phoenix was happening, and the Liberty, they were getting away from their own bread and butter, which is playing a faster pace and having ball movement. Yeah. It was very static. And so Phoenix took advantage of that. And so it started to become this back and forth, but more in favor of Phoenix. And yeah, Stewie had to step up, and she did. She was having a pretty good game already. But she took over in the fourth quarter for sure to really get that win. It's tough because, yeah, you want to see more from all the starters. And I think they did give it their best shot. But again, sometimes when some players aren't doing so well, another teammate's going to pick them up. That's what Stewie did in this game. She's going to pick up the other players if she has to. Previous games, you had Sabrina with the hot hand, and yeah. So with Stewie being the number one on this team, the expectation is that you're going to get her the ball, she's going to score. And she did that in the fourth quarter. So you got her the ball, she scored, she kept them in this game. They got the win. Win by any means necessary. They're still number 2 in this league. So yeah, they did what they needed to do. Even unfortunately though, with the minutes she played, yeah, you could tell she was tired, but she was still giving it her all.
I mean, when you have a player that scores 43 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 for 4 at the 3-point line, 13 for 20 shots in terms of field goal. I mean, obviously, you're going to rely on a player like Stewie when she has stats like that.
That's MVP level right
MVP
there.
level, second 40-point game of the season. I don't think there's many players. I think there's about 5 or 6 players in the history of the WNBA that managed to score multiple 40-point games in the season. But that was just incredible. And yeah, I mean, we talk about all those NBA superstars and everything, but they are superstars in the WNBA, and I think I cannot emphasize enough how lucky we are as fans and being able to go to games at the Barclays to witness that. It's not normal. It is not normal at all to see what she does. That demands hard work, talent, obviously, and incredible abilities, but thank goodness Stewie decided to play for New York this year, and we're really grateful. But like you said, we're gonna have to sort of make sure that we play on our strength and the ball movement with the number one teams in the series this season. So let's make sure that we continue that way. But before we move on to the Seattle game that was played on Saturday, I said that I was not gonna talk about it 2 podcasts ago, and I would, let things kind of simmer down a little bit when it comes to referees in the WNBA. And it's fine. I can say whatever I want. I'm not gonna get fined. I'm not a player of the league, but we gotta talk about the ref, like especially in this game against the Phoenix Mercury, and it's been going on for quite some time now. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously I'm watching games at the Barclays or on TV, and we don't know what it's like to be a ref. I mean, I actually ref when I was younger, and it's not easy, don't get me wrong. But they are professional referees. They are trained for those situations. And I cannot help but think that when you look at the NBA versus the WNBA, there's a clear difference in terms of levels with referees. Like, what do you notice, or what frustrates you when it comes to referees in the WNBA?
I just feel like we got, I want to say B level, but it's almost like C level refs sometimes. Like, it's not every single ref, but I feel like it's a good chunk of them, more so than the NBA. You got refs in the NBA that can be frustrating, but in the WNBA, I don't know if they got different rules. It shouldn't be, in my opinion. I don't know what it is. I feel like they ref the WNBA in a way that they want the players to play soft, almost. Like, if you barely touch a person, it's a foul. Whereas in the NBA, I feel like you have a lot of refs that just let them play.
Yeah.
A lot of the times. And in the WNBA, you really have some, like, ticky-tacky fouls, and it doesn't make sense. And when you feel like, especially in this game, where it seemed like the referees control the game more than just allowing the players to play, it just takes away from the beauty of the game, from the physicality of the game. They're athletes. They've been training for this. They've been playing this game for a good chunk of their lives, probably more than half their lives.
Yeah.
And you got to let them play. They're top athletes. They're not just, I just feel like they ref them a lot softer, in a way that, meaning what I mean by softer is that any little thing, it's a foul. And I just think they got to let them play. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that you don't let these women play the game. They're still athletes. I just feel like it's ref different between the WNBA and the NBA, and that shouldn't be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at all the haters online that like to spend their time criticizing women's basketball, saying that it's boring, it's not as fun or athletic as the men's game, and then you have those professional athletes in the WNBA that want more equality and be treated as athletes. They are professional athletes, so they might not do Hollywood dunks like the men, but they can ball. They play ball. Yeah. They go to the gym to train every single day to be in top shape, top conditions, and produce an incredible show. So let's not treat them as if they're like average players or something like that, and just allow them to play. I feel like I think the number one foul in the WNBA is those set screens. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, there's no foul. Like, they set a good screen. It's a physical... I mean, screens are not meant to, just be chilling and just brushing on your shoulder. They're meant to, have an impact physically and to surprise you and create the difference. And sometimes, they set screens and bing, there's a foul. sometimes the other player runs towards you. You didn't do anything. I mean, we'll talk about the Seattle game later, but there was a foul where Drew Lloyd literally bumped into Jonko Jones, and they gave a foul to Jonko Jones. Like, she didn't do anything. So it's like, that shouldn't be like, the star of the show or the game, those fouls. And I said to you, off records, that like usually at WNBA games last about 2 hours. And if a game lasts about 2 hours and 15 or 20 minutes and there was no overtime, the ref had something to say in that game, and we're very tacky with that call. So I think, they really have to look. I don't know if it's a question of like, the training or I don't know, is this a rule that they have to focus specifically on those screens, or even the N1s? Quite often, like if a player attacks the basket, like it's automatically an N1. So you feel like defenders don't really have a lot of chance to block the shot without, getting a foul. I don't know. It's very frustrating. Then, how indecisive they can be at times. Like, like the fact that they spend sometimes a long time reviewing plays where even us in the stands, we could see what happened. At the end of the day, obviously they want to, have the best product out there, because it's obviously entertainment. You want to have more people watching the game, enjoying the game. And I think when games are taken over by a referee, there's clearly a problem. And I wish that the WNBA would look into those things a little bit more, just like Adam Silver does with the NBA when there's something that is like, making the game less enjoyable. Just recently they approved, technical fouls on flopping, because they saw that it was happening more and more in the NBA. So what about the WNBA reviewing some of those calls that those refs unfortunately tend to call every single time?
I just feel like they got to make this even. What they institute in the NBA.
Yeah.
Obviously, for this season, it's going to be one thing. But as the WNBA season comes through, like for next year, you should be able to have very similar, if not the exact same rules in the WNBA as you have in the NBA. And, the refs have to, people did not buy their ticket to see the refs.
Yeah.
You buy your tickets, come to these games, root for your players. And when the referees take over the game in such a way, it's not enjoyable. You're definitely going to hear a lot of boo birds from the fans, but it's just not enjoyable at that point, because it's one thing after another. Or you have, I've tend to see in the WNBA versus the NBA where you tend to have calls where the refs aren't paying attention almost. Yeah. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but sometimes when you're at some of the WNBA games, I feel like there's a call, they're looking at the other refs, and the other refs are confused, and they got to talk about it. And it happens in the NBA. Don't get me wrong, it happens. But I feel like it tends to happen more in the WNBA. I feel like I've seen it more than I do in the NBA. I know it's a tough job. It is, because I've also had friends who were referees, whether it was for not in the WNBA, but maybe college and and other games. And so it's not easy because it's going so fast. And what we see sometimes, whether it's on television or at the game, sometimes we might see something, we see the replay. It's not easy. But again, when you have a game going over 2 hours and you got a lot of different foul calls for certain calls that were just like, you just got to let them play at the end of the day.
So I think it's a fair point that you just shared. I think, it's easier said, from where we stand to, being actually in the game. But we all want, the league to grow and the product to be incredible. We already think it's incredible, but we want it to continue to thrive. And so let's try to figure this out. Let's try to maybe review the training of the referees, or sort of establish clear rules when it comes to all those fouls that are called unnecessarily, so that, it could be a more enjoyable experience. and that you don't get Liberty fans like, barking at you during the game because they feel like they don't know what you're doing.
And also, can I just say, when you have those final 2 minutes, like in the NBA,
I was gonna
the
talk about
refs
that.
are allowed to review things if they mess up or get confused by something. They're allowed to review on their own. We should have that in the WNBA. Like, coaches shouldn't, now that they've instituted
the challenge,
coaches shouldn't have to use a challenge just to get you to review a play. Especially if you know that all three of you are not in unison on a call.
Yeah.
Like, that should be an automatic review. It shouldn't force a coach to use a challenge in a game when it should go to you to review that play. Especially in the last 2 minutes of a game. Especially if it's close and it's crucial.
Yeah.
They get one challenge. And I know some coaches, I feel like Sandy's a bit reluctant at times to use her challenges, but rightfully so, because you only get one.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes, I just think we got to keep it even. Like, I don't understand why they don't have that specific rule in the WNBA this season.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you guys listen to us, people who are dealing with those decisions, but it would be great to sort of review them and, more enjoyable for everybody. And, I just don't want to see 4 or 5 fouls on Joko Jones when literally only one out of those 4 or 5 really happened. But, let's just say I'm going to, put an end to that topic for now, and hopefully we won't have to talk about it again. But now let's move on to Saturday's game, which was the third time that the New York Liberty and the Seattle Storm were facing each other this season, but the first time in New York. Very, very, very strange game, isn't it? Like, for those of you who are not at the stadium, can you explain what happened there, Felicia?
Well, the whole PA sound system went out, so it was really quiet to start the game, so if you weren't there...
quiet, yes and no. It gave an opportunity for the fans to, sort of
what I mean is, like, the music that they normally have, the announcers that, for the Barclays Center, you don't hear any of that. So the crowd had to hype the teams up, when they had to do their intros. You just saw them kind of pop up and do their own little intros. You don't hear anything.
Yeah, that was funny.
So it was pretty funny to see them, like, hype themselves up, but the crowd got into it and realized, we gotta be the sound system right now until they figured it out. So it did, like, start off with a weird vibe, but you make the best of it.
Yeah, I feel like the obviously when you're used to certain routines where it comes to, like, players' intro and the music and everything, and this time around you didn't have that, it kind of sets the tone and the weird vibe. And to be fair, like, the first quarter, like, the Liberty started great. Like, they had an 8-0 run. With 2 threes from Sabrina. I felt like, unlike the previous games, they were good on defense on Jewel Lloyd and kind of forced her to, have difficult shots, and she was not necessarily good from outside shooting. So you felt like, okay, we're pretty comfortable. We beat them twice in Seattle pretty comfortably. We've won a couple of games, so, once again, I think, we always think, well, they're going to take care of business, but it just wasn't the case, wasn't it? Like, the whole game was kind of like back and forth between the two teams. What do you think, like, Seattle did really well in that game?
They adjusted, I think with the Liberty having a strong start, and then you saw where they definitely tried to get the ball in Jewel Lloyd's hands a lot. Liberty started to double team her, which helped initially, but once you get Lloyd one-on-one, it's not, usually it benefits Lloyd. Most of the time it benefits Jewel Lloyd. So I think once they started getting that going, and also, again, for the Liberty, it's about ball movement and playing with pace. Once they get away from that, teams tend to take advantage. They tend to come back If the Liberty start playing static, if they start having defensive miscues, if they're not playing with that urgency, teams typically take advantage of that and they're able to come back in this game. And that's what Seattle did. They played with a bit more urgency than the Liberty did. It did go back and forth, but you just felt like Seattle had a lot more to prove in this game because obviously their record is what it is, unfortunately. So they're trying to win as many games and they're trying to play with all heart. Not to say that the Liberty is not playing with heart, but I think sometimes they do get away from playing with that urgency and poise. And sometimes when you're up there at the top of the league, whether you're number 1, 2, or 3, sometimes you think, oh, we got this game, and you got to play with that grit. You got to play with that poise and urgency.
Yeah, and I think Noelle Quinn, the coach of the Seattle Storm, she had definitely a better game plan this time around than in the previous 2 games in Seattle. And I think the announcers of that game, when we sort of look back at the game, today, they were saying that New York kind of struggle, one-on-one, and I think that Noelle Quinn was able to figure out where they could attack the Liberty, and Izzy McBagor was incredible. I mean, she's been voted in the All-Star game for the very first time, and she was incredible. I mean, she was attacking the basket against Stewie, and Stewie struggled quite a few times to contain her. And she definitely made the Liberty pay on defense. And so at the end of the first half, we ended up losing that first half and trailing by 36 to 35. A low scoring affair and definitely not what I was expecting. But the third quarter, I think we definitely came back into with better attentions. The ball movement, I mean, there's no secret. We were talking earlier about sometimes how the Liberty can rely too much on Stewie. But third quarter, I think they sort of went back to their principles and, passing the ball better. There were a couple of frees by Sabrina and Vandersloot. Sabrina, who hasn't had as many assists this season as previous season. Obviously, with Vandersloot being the best passer in the league, average is gonna lower a bit. But I feel like she was very good in this game, passing the ball either to Nyara Sabally or Vandersloot. And so I felt like, the third quarter was definitely much more efficient on their end. And the 3-pointers are definitely what sort of, kept the Liberty going in that third quarter. But, fourth quarter, it was a little bit scary. I'm not going to lie. I was expecting maybe like a 15-20 point victory. I really hope that if you decided to bet on this game, that you didn't bet on the plus 17 or plus 18 Liberty victory, because that fourth quarter was pretty tight. Obviously, one of the turning point was unfortunately Drew Lloyd's injury. She twisted her ankle by herself with 7 minutes left in the quarter, which was, to be honest, very scary. Like, I mean, any player, it would be scary to witness that in the stadium, but especially when it's like one of the best players in the league, you really don't want anything bad to happen. I mean, she was able to stand up afterwards and so go back in the locker room, but she didn't come back into this game. And so after the scary moments, I think the Liberty kind of took advantage of it. And Sabrina was on fire, scoring frees after frees. And that gave the Liberty a 10-point lead with 3 minutes left in this game. So we thought it was a wrap. But, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the revenge show of the New York Liberty. But this week it was probably the revenge show of the former Liberty players. So Michaela, even though she didn't win with Phoenix, she had a 19-point game. And then in this game,
good old Sami Whitcomb.
Good old Sami Whitcomb. Whew, what can we say about Sami?
I mean, we always knew she had a quick trigger.
That quick trigger, man.
That quick release. If you give her the slightest amount of space, you're not catching up with her. You're not getting to her when she shoots that 3 ball. She came through for them, even though, yes, they didn't get the win, but she got it very close because she had her own 8-0 run in the fourth quarter towards the end of the game, and yeah, with 2 quick threes, getting into the paint to get a bucket. I mean, she was her own wrecking crew in the fourth quarter, very quick. And she also, as we talked about, her lucky gum that when she made that first three, I think she lost the gum.
Is there really a 3-second rule when something goes on the floor and then you pick it up and put it back in the
You can have maybe a 3-second rule in your house, but like on a court where sweat and I'm not gonna get into it because that's just gonna get gross. But on a court, yeah, no, because there's.
Yeah, I think like everybody in the stadium was kind of stunned. First of all, because she scored, that was the second free, and then after that, we all saw that she, dropped a gum and put it back in her mouth, and it was like, oh no, what just happened? And then
she did it quickly, but still, like, I don't know if that would be my first instincts. I know you're thinking immediately like you don't want gum on the floor because you don't want some player to step in it or whatever. But yeah, I probably would have just thrown it to the side, or I don't know. I would have done something else. I wouldn't be putting that back in my mouth. But she picked it up quickly, but still, she was still chewing it all the way through the end of the game. Even if you did that, I thought she would have, once timeout or a foul call, you got back to the bench real fast, you get it out. But then she made another 3. She got another bucket after that, so maybe she thought, lucky gum right there.
I don't think she didn't care that much about what impression she gave. She was there to win, and that kind of brought me back to, let's give some props to Sami Whitcomb. She played 2 seasons with the New York Liberty, and I remember some of the craziest moments of the past 2 seasons at the Barclays, where quite often runs with Sami where she would get on fire and score like 3 or 4 threes in a row, and the crowds would go insane. And it's just like this quick trigger that she has. Like,
she's so quick.
Yeah, like as a defender, it makes it really hard because you don't know what she's gonna do, and once she gets on fire like that, it's unstoppable. And I know, like, she's a very humble person. We got to meet her last year when there was like a meet and greets with the fans to sort of celebrate the end of the regular season, and you could tell she was a very humble person, very nice. She interacted with a lot of people, so we definitely had great memories of Sami Whitcomb. We wish it wasn't against us, unfortunately, but I think, we sort of expect the Liberty to just dominate games just like the Las Vegas Aces, and it's been a little bit more, a little bit more greedier for the Liberty to win those games. But what they said at the end of the game, though, was, the mentality and the experience that it gives you. Sabrina said after the game that, we had to buckle down, get starts when we needed to. Stewie Benaja had great games. Nyara came in and gave us a great game off the bench. She said that it's a game of runs, and those last couple of games they find different ways to score. Even though Seattle beat them on the board and on the 50-50 balls, they got shots when they needed to. And even Stewie, appreciated. She said that it's really valuable when we're in those close games, when teams come back, there's more pressure on us to finish. And so they have to continue to get this experience and save it for later in the season. So, I mean, it's not going to be pretty all the time, but great teams can find solutions when they need to. And they got the job done in this difficult game.
Yeah, for sure. Again, there's always ebbs and flows in a game, and it is, like Sabrina said, it's about runs. Like, this game goes quick sometimes, and you could get out fast pace, score a few buckets, you get a timeout, next team comes up. It can go back and forth very, very quickly. And so, yeah, this, again, they had to fight to get, in this game. Stewie had a good game. It wasn't like her previous game, but I feel like she had like a quiet efficient game.
I mean, I would love to have a quiet game with 25 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 for 7 at the 3-point line. I mean, I like that kind of quiet, to be honest. But
Yeah, I mean, it just, like the last game, you could see the difference. Like, she's still getting her points. She's still, having her effect on this game. But I think towards the end, and throughout the game, what really saved the Liberty was the 3-point ball, for sure.
I mean, Sabrina was incredible.
With Sabrina having 6 threes in this game and, obviously others contributing throughout the game, it was huge. It was a huge win for the Liberty. They had to pull this one out. They did that.
With a challenge. So just to, for the recap, the end of the game, the Liberty were up by 2. Seattle had the ball. Very good defense by the New York Liberty, and Benaja Laney was battling, the rebound with Manjanu, a rookie from Seattle, who's really had a very dominant game at the boards. I mean, from the stands, we could tell that it was Manjadu that touched the ball last. But fortunately or unfortunately, the Liberty had to take a challenge to make sure that they got the ball. The ref took a very long time, but it was clear from the replays and from what we saw from the stands that the Liberty were going to gain that ball, and they did. And after that, I mean, it was, not game over, but, Seattle had to foul. They fouled Sabrina twice, who, obviously she's a great free throw shooter, and scored the 2 points, the 2 free throws, which gave a 4-point lead. And then the Storms, who were running out of timeout, took a 3-point shot and, missed it. Sabrina got the rebound, and we got the win, 80-76.
But again, in a game like this, in the last, under 1 minute of the game, with the last 30 seconds of the game, you have a call that could have been reviewed. It shouldn't have been a coach's challenge. That right there, you were not certain that went off of Benaja. That right there, you can go, they should have that rule that within the last 2 minutes, it was perfect right there. That whole play. Something like that should be reviewed. It shouldn't be. And I'm glad, I think there was somewhere earlier in the game where we thought she could have used the challenge and she didn't. So I'm glad that she had the challenge at the end, because that could have been a total momentum shift for Seattle. Because at that point, the Liberty were only up by 2. So it went in the Liberty's favor. I'm really happy with that. And they got that win. But again, the refs, some of these calls in the WNBA. We hope it gets better, you guys. We really do. But I think it's probably going to take some time. I doubt this will be our last discussion about the refs, but I don't want to make every podcast about the refs.
We're not going to get fined, so we can still bring it up.
I don't want to make every discussion about the refs, because this isn't about them. But sometimes in these particular games this week, the refs were not great.
All right, so overall, 2 greedy wins, but we get 2 wins, and we sort of getting closer to the Las Vegas Aces. I didn't think I was going to be able to say that at some point in the season, the way the Aces have been playing, but they lost recently against the Dallas Wings for the second loss of the season, and we're trailing right behind with 13 wins and 4 losses. So there's a little hope, that we could maybe, get the first spot. It's going to be tough, but at least now we feel like we have a chance, and we got those 2 wins. Next week, we'll only have 1 game away against Indiana, which is going to be an important game, because if the Liberty win this game, they would be the finalists for the Commissioner's Cup, and will face the Las Vegas Aces, who already have their spot for the Western Conference. So still an important game before the All-Star break. Before we quickly talk about the selections for the All-Star game, there were also other news for the New York Liberty, and the big news was for Sabrina Ionescu, who was the face of the NBA 2K video game, as well as Kobe Bryant. She was the face of the game for the the WNBA. I think, the past couple of seasons now, the NBA 2K game has different covers, and so they try to have covers with NBA players and WNBA players. So 2 years ago, Candace Parker was the first WNBA player to be on the cover of the game. Last season it was Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, and this year it's Sabrina Ionescu of the New York Liberty. So obviously we know the impact that this video game has on many generations. I don't play video games anymore, but that was definitely one of my favorite games, and the way this game has reached a level in terms of the things you can do, how real the players look like, the different game modes that you have. You cannot deny the impact it has. Even the players now like challenge the ratings they have, so everybody pays attention, and so that's a big accomplishment in terms of image for Sabrina Ionescu. But we cannot help think and mention that it was a little bit should we say controversial, or a lot of people were unhappy with the choice.
I think the reviews were mixed. I think I always feel a bit just complex with this one. I feel like Sabrina deserves the accolades. She is a phenomenal player. But when you think about the WNBA players in particular, who have gotten this honor, basically, they've been in this game for some time. They've won championships, MVPs, things of that nature. And so you understand why they should be there. Sabrina has the stats. She is a phenomenal player again. I love her on the Liberty. I love her. I love that we have her on our team. But I also think when you look at the game as a whole, I think there are other players that are also deserving of this particular honor. So I think, sometimes it feels like it just comes down to a popularity contest sometimes.
But I mean, like, if you look into those arguments of popularity, I mean, the two players with the most votes for the All-Star game were A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart. You see A'ja Wilson in a lot of commercials now. She's one of the faces of the WNBA. Breanna Stewart is also one of those faces, and she's having an incredible season. Yeah. And those two players have won titles. I mean, Breanna Stewart was MVP. She won 2 WNBA titles. A'ja Wilson has been MVP twice, has 2 titles as well. No, 1 title, excuse me. Last year, she, has a lot of accolades. So for me, it would have been the 2 most obvious choices for the cover, because they are popular and they've pretty much won everything that they could win. So for me, those would have been the 2 obvious choices. But I think, what kind of, bugs me a little bit is that I think like the people that were against this decision of, having Sabrina as the cover of the game kind of revert to like, and their criticism. I think they kind of lose sight at some point of, how good Sabrina is. We're not saying that she's the best player of the WNBA, but like, you gotta watch the games though. Like, I mean, we at the games, like, all the home games, and yeah, we see the flaws that she has in the game. We mentioned previously in the podcast, the defense, or, like sometimes when she goes to the basket, she often gets blocked by centers or more physical players, a lot of movement. But like, there's other things to her games, right? And, when she was injured with an hamstring injury, we saw how the Liberty needed her in those moments. We see how she scores those incredible threes, and, even further and further, like, every season, we see her in the warm-ups, the way she prepares herself. Like, she can, rebound the ball, she can pass the ball. Like, she does a lot of things like that helps the team win.
She does a lot of the little things. I do agree, and I think that's why it's so complicated for me when I see that, because, like you said, when you think about this league, and again, who got voted in the most for the All-Star, A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart. Even if it was one of those two to be in this video game, to be picked for this, I would have been fine with that. Because of the fact who you even had before them, they've won championships. They have received some major accolades in their career. And Sabrina is just starting out.
Yeah.
She's only been in this league for a couple years now. And she's gotten quite a lot, I would say. Again, girl, get your bag. You know what I mean? Yeah. If it's there, it's not like you just gonna be like, no, I don't want this. Of course you're gonna want this. This is your longevity. This is your future. You're gonna go after it, and people, if they're gonna, present it to you, why not? But I think, you also have other players in this league who have been in this league longer, fighting, winning championships, doing it, in this league, and they're just not recognized as much as her. I'm happy that A'ja Wilson is now more out there on the forefront. Yeah. I feel like that is well deserved. She deserves it. Yeah. Absolutely, she deserves it. Yeah, I'm a Liberty fan, but you gotta say shit. This woman got game.
A'ja Wilson in a little bit. It's not gonna happen, but
right. So you just gotta recognize the talent, the brilliance of some of these athletes, and so that's why it's complicated, because I think Sabrina will be that. I just don't think she's there yet. I think she's getting there, but I don't think she's there yet. And when you put a player like Kobe, for instance, that's understandable. Yeah. Yes, there's the argument between him, Jordan, LeBron, all that for the GOAT. Fine, whatever. But well-deserved. Yeah. Sabrina, she is, I truly believe that she will get there and she will be that, but it just seems early. No. I guess that's what it comes down to. It's not that she shouldn't get it. It just felt a bit early for her to be the face right now. Yeah. Whereas, you could put Stewie, you could put A'ja Wilson and others in that category as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously representation matters, and that's why, some people have strong opinions about, who's the face of, the league or, of a video game. But I think, sometimes when I read some of the comments, you can dislike a player, you don't like their style of play, or you got your favorite players obviously, but some of the criticism of her game can be a little bit irrational, and I told you before, Felicia, it also made me think of Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I'm my fellow Frenchman. There's a lot of expectation for him as well in the NBA, and I won't spend too long on that, but he had his first summer league game, and it was kind of mixed in terms of his performance, but that was just one game of the summer league. And I think because they hyped him up so much, when you read the comments on Twitter about his game, it's almost like he's a buzz, or you see why you hyped him so much, and so I couldn't help to see the parallel as well with Sabrina, where it's you could have valid criticism, valid reason as to why other player maybe deserve it more, but to say that she's a bust or she's she's not a great player, for me it's a little too much. So yeah, I mean, happy for Sabrina, understand why other choices could have worked out, but it is what it is. She's a little bit of a player. We're gonna continue to support her and be happy for her in that regards. In other news as well, if you're a Liberty fan, you definitely also gotta watch the third episode on YouTube of the Liberty, the season unlocked, and it's a shorter episode than the first two. It's about 8 or 9 minutes, but you gotta watch it. If you love basketball, if you love magicians like my Johannès, it's definitely a work of art. This 9 minutes video on YouTube that the Liberty produced that kind of helps you getting into the world of my Johannès, the shy presence off the court, but the sort of, incredible player on the court, and just get a better idea of who she is and how she sees the game. I mean, that was a great, episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love that episode because we both love Marine, and so I think they did a great job with this episode. I think that what I got from that episode is just more. I hope with the coaching staff that they will figure out how to use her better. I think sometimes it feels almost like they put her in and it's like, do you?
Yeah.
But I think she needs a little bit more direction. Yeah, we call her the wizard, the magician on the court because her passes could be impeccable at times. And I think she likes to play that way. I think she wants to make the better pass, the great pass, so that you get a better result. But I think sometimes she herself has to see that she can also be more aggressive to get those buckets. I think that they just, I don't know. I think they have to set some better plays for her to get her more involved in this game, or in future games, I should say. So I'm still a Marine fan. I want to see her get better this year, though.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that, I cannot even remember the last time she really had a break. I mean, the season in France is really long. They start, September, October, and they go all the way up to June, like mid-June. So that's a much longer season than other, championships in Europe. And after that, the past 2 seasons, after French season, she went to, the WNBA with the New York Liberty. And then in between, like last year, she was supposed to play at the World Cup, but she had an hamstring injury. The previous year, she had the Olympics in Tokyo. So that's a lot of games. And obviously, she loves basketball, and that's always, what she wanted to do in life. But that's hard to play so many games. And so I think, like, she's kind of hitting a wall at the moment. And, I just feel like, yes, at first I was like, yeah, Sandy Brandelo, like, wants to give her freedom. But at the same time, I feel like, she's still trying to figure out her place in that new roster. Because it's not the same roster as last year. You obviously have a couple of stars now on the team and just figuring out a role. Because, trust me, watch some of the games, and some of the games are available on YouTube from the French league, or even she didn't play in the Euro League this year, but the Euro Cup, and it's a totally different player. Like, she's more aggressive, she scored a lot of points, and I feel like it's not like she cannot do that in the WNBA. And I think obviously she's a very unselfish player and want teammates to shine. But I feel like sometimes she could just take over and just attack the basket, or cross over any player that defends on her. So I don't know. I mean, obviously we want her to do well, and we're a little bit worried with the challenges she faced recently. But I really hope that they can find a way to bring her confidence back and for her to shine, because when she clicks, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think also we have to remember that she played a whole season in France. I mean, that's basically like an NBA season.
Yeah.
And then she comes to New York and plays another season of basketball.
Exactly.
So there's really no time, not a whole lot of time off for her. She had a few days, a week or so. That's not a whole lot of time off for her. And so, I don't know. She may not ever admit this. She's an athlete. She's a professional athlete. Sometimes I feel like I wonder if she's a bit tired sometimes. It's a long season. So, there's no hate on her if she is tired, because she's coming from France playing in the WNBA. That's a grueling schedule. And, but a lot of women do that, though. A lot of athletes in the WNBA, they do that, and that's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think what is very telling is how other players on the team speak of her. They speak very highly of her, whether it's Vandersloot, Sabrina Ionescu, Breanna Stewart, players that have the experience at this highest level, and just the way they talk about Marine, they know how important she is for this team and how she could be important in the playoff. I mean, I remember last year when we battled against the Chicago Sky, and obviously we were not the favorites, and we didn't win that series, but we won the first game in Chicago, and she was a big part of that. Like,
Yeah.
and even there was a time where we beat the Las Vegas Aces in Vegas in the regular season last year, and it was because Marine was just unstoppable. So we know, and they know, that if she could have those kind of performances, that could really lift up the team and get them closer to, you know, their dream of, you know, getting the title and defeat the Las Vegas Aces or any other team for that matter. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. All right, so that's it for our episode today. We're not gonna drop an episode on Monday next week because we're gonna have a little vacation, and there's not gonna be a lot of games next week. As I said earlier, the Liberty will play only one game on Wednesday against the Indiana Fever, and then there's gonna be the All-Star weekend. So our episode will drop on the Tuesday for next week, where we'll recap that game against the Fever, and then the All-Star game festivities, and hopefully with Liberty players shining. We don't know who might participate in the 3-point contest and the skill challenge on the Friday, but you know, on that day is Bastille Day, the national holiday, Independence Day for France. So I don't know, it would be very awesome and symbolic that Marine could participate, but they haven't announced anything just yet. So we'll recap that, next week. And, you know, hopefully it should be an exciting All-Star game. It was great to see Stewie and Asia pick up their team. And it's, you know, stacked with a lot of talent on both sides. So that should be a lot of fun, and we'll recap that, next week. So thank you so much for listening to our episode. And as we always say,
Let's go Liberty!